Hello, you guys. This is Melissa from the Ranting Shop, and today we're gonna be doing the final episode of Ready to Love, which is the reunion part 2. Let's get into things. So now we're at the point where the whole debacle happened with Lavoon. When he was on his way out, he confronted Sabrina, told Sabrina that he knows that they were plotting on him, and he was told that information by Precious. That was the lie, and that is the lie. When you go further into things, you learn that, and he admits it as well, he admitted it on Little Black Book, that it wasn't Precious that told him, it was Ace. And that is where things become a little tricky, because Ace was the one that heard it from Precious, and she decided that since it was relevant to her strongest connection, Lavoon, that it would be important to deliver that information to Lavoon. How Lavoon chose to divulge that information was by telling a lie, so to speak. Even though he says he didn't lie, he actually did tell a little bit of a lie by saying that it was Precious that told him when Precious never interacted with him. Okay, so essentially it's been cleared up, so to speak. What happened was that Carmen was calling people, trying to ask them where they were as far as who they were voting for their bottoms, because she felt as if the couples that were already locked in were a threat and needed to go home. So apparently she called Sabrina and asked her who she was gonna vote for. She said, I'm gonna vote for Lavoon, not for you, not because of you, not because I want to break up any alliance, but simply because that's not my choice. That's not my top choice. He's my bottom choice. And then Ace comes in and clarifies everything, and she finally says that what Precious told to her was not out of malice, but the way Lavoon acted out during that elimination, you would have sworn it was out of malice. Nobody was on Lavoon's top, so why was he angry that people wanted him out? Nobody was on his top except for Ace. So that is where I think that Lavoon blew things way out of proportion. Precious is defensive because she thinks that she's not looking good in the situation because Lavoon called out her name and made her seem like she was just spreading malicious rumors. Ace clarified things and said what Precious said was not out of malice, but just giving her a heads up to let her know that Carmen was doing some underhanded things. And that was simply what it was. Carmen is denying it, but you know what? I actually don't believe Carmen. And the reason why I say that is because remember, you guys, when Carmen used to talk to the guys that were her supposed connections, for example, Paul, and every time she would speak to them, she would ask them where their connection was with other women. Remember that? And they either told her or didn't tell her, so she could gauge like what her standings were on the show. So I completely believe that that is something that she did, and I wouldn't put it past Carmen to do something like this. So I do think that there is truth to that. I do think that that is exactly what she did. Let me know what you guys think. So now they played the whole Demetrius montage when he first came in, and we all know a lot of the women were very attracted to him. He wears a suit very nicely. He's groomed very nicely. I personally didn't find him attractive. I didn't see what the hoopla was about, but women like nicely kept dark men, and so I'm not surprised a lot of them were attracted to him. Tina called him a player, and by her own admission, she kind of made that assumption too hastily, and she was a bit too guarded when it came to him, because when she heard all the women were attracted to him, she kind of like wasn't sure about him. But she says he's a cool guy. Sabrina mentioned he was cool, calm, collective, but at the end of it all, and I think the reason why it didn't go anywhere was primarily because of Donovan, what Donovan did, how he sabotaged the relationship. I think the awkwardness of that kiss, that secret, kind of made Sabrina embarrassed. But I don't think it was so bad that she couldn't still push through it, because I feel as if that's what who you say you want, why not at least try to make it work? Like, I don't understand. In that case, I feel as if she was, in the end, either she's scared, either she was self-sabotaging, or she was playing games. Because if that's what you want, why not just go for it? Why mess it up? That's what I don't quite understand. If he was everything you wanted, why not even try to, if there's some things that you misunderstood, why not try to delve deeper into some things with him, and talk it out and figure out what is there that we can go past and stuff like that. I found that extremely weird. It seemed like at that point with Demetria, she was self-sabotaging. But she might have seen some things that we just didn't see. But according to her, he's a good guy. But she friend-zoned him. So maybe in actuality, she simply wasn't ready. She came to the realization that she wasn't ready. And I can't be mad at her for that. But it did seem like she was wasting their times. But maybe it took wasting their times to figure out that she wasn't ready. I also feel like maybe the way Demetrius handled the kiss situation made her feel like more weird and awkward. Maybe she didn't like how he handled it, and maybe that's what sealed the deal in the end. Now we're speaking on Mr. Paul, the enigma, the person we never thought would make it that far, simply because we didn't see it for him, but he did. So for Paul's segment, I did find that he did Precious wrong, considering how strongly Precious was defending him. He didn't do the same for her. I wish she was able to see that, so she could have hopped off of Paul and go and explore other people. But I guess it was too little too late. He kind of apologized for how he navigated the process. She kind of accepted it. Now, as far as the Kia and Paul, we all knew, including them, that there was nothing romantic there, and they were not gonna leave with each other. That's not anything that's surprising. As far as the situation with Carmen, I kind of believe Carmen. I believe that Carmen did hear these things from Paul. I think she did get that from Paul. Whether it be directly or indirectly, she did get that from Paul. It's easy to not claim something if you didn't directly say it, because then it becomes that person's assumption. But I did think that he did allude to the fact that he wasn't attracted to the Kia. And I mean that simply because men are visual creatures. They go for what they're most attracted to first. And he did not go for the Kia first. He went for other people. It took him a while towards the end of the show to go for the Kia. And to me, that's all I need to know for me to come to the realization that he was not the most attracted to the Kia. He became somewhat attracted to her personality, but he was never attracted to her. He never alluded to her physical appearance. He never referred to her as sexy. He never let us know that he was attracted to her. So he always mentioned her qualities. So in that aspect, I kind of believe Carmen that he wasn't attracted to her like that. So the Kia thinks that Carmen is lying and she was just hurt, and that's why she said these things. She admitted to saying it, yes, because she was hurt, but that doesn't mean it wasn't true. And that's the thing. So now the Kia has a boyfriend. Paul seemingly has a girlfriend, and that is that. So let's move on to the next situation. Before I move on to the next situation, Tina actually verified that Paul also said to her that he wasn't attracted to the Kia. So allegedly, it wasn't just something he told Carmen or alluded to with Carmen. He also did the same with Tina. Okay, so I don't know how many people believe Paul. I don't know how many people believe Dakia. But if two people are saying you said the same things about Dakia, then I'm a little more likely to believe that he did say these things, or at least alluded to that without necessarily saying it to them. So this is the Tina segment. They played a montage and everything like that. She's apparently the runaway queen. She is the most elusive one, the one that just disappears. According to her, she left in the middle of the process because she just did not see her connections there, and it was just too stressful for her. So in a sense, she felt like she was wasting her time still being on the show if her connections just weren't there. She preferred to just leave instead of continuing to do this thing because it was not making sense for her. Now, that's where I think everybody that kind of forgets that it is a show at the end of the day. So it stops becoming about love for a lot of people very early on, and it becomes about staying on the show until the show ends. And I feel like some people are able to bow out because their connection is truly not there and they were truly there for love, and some people can ride it out simply because they want to ride it out, not because their connection is there, but because they want to ride it out. And I think for Tina, she realized that her connection wasn't there and she didn't want to ride it out, so she left. Now, the way she left was unceremonious. It seemed as if it was a little bit disrespectful. It was a little bit rude, but she felt like that's what she needed to do. She has a kid, she has a business, and it was becoming too much for her to date uselessly for a show. And that's why she left. So, Tina and Paul. There's been a whole debacle on social media with Tina and Paul. Tina is saying that Paul is a liar. Paul is saying that Tina is a liar. And maybe I'll insert the clips there shortly. Also, my estimation from what's going on here is, I don't know, but Tina is saying Paul lied and he wanted her to self-eliminate very early on because he didn't see the person he wanted in the process. And for me, that just proves that Dakia was never on this man's radar. Absolutely never on his radar. But beyond that, I believe that there is some truth to what Tina is saying, because why would somebody lie in that manner? It would serve her no purpose, really. So I absolutely have to believe that there is some truth to what Tina is saying, because I personally didn't see anybody there for Paul, and I wouldn't be surprised if Paul didn't see anybody there for him, because it took him towards the end of the show to see something with the Kia, and it wasn't even something substantial like or anything romantic. So apparently he wanted to sell a book, and he wanted to, I don't know what it was, but I do feel as if there's some truth to what Tina is saying. Paul denies things all day, but I have to think that there is some truth. Now, is it 100% true? I don't know. Paul says he's gonna tell us the truth at some point. I don't know. After that, maybe I'll come back and speak on what he said. But for this thus far, I cannot believe him. She felt, now that's the thing I told you guys. You see how Tommy says when you decide to go through the process, you have to go all the way through, even though your connection is not there, even though you know that your person is not on the show, you still have to write it out. And that's what I tell people. Sometimes it's not even you that want to stay until the end. It's the producers begging you to stay until the end, because at the end of the day, they need people, because it's a show about dating. And so in a sense, I don't even fault the Kia, because I felt like at some point she had to stay because of the show. I think she knew her connection wasn't with Mr. Cliff, and she had to force it so she could stay. So it becomes less about finding love at a point and more about just finishing the show. And I think that's what we end up seeing very obviously while watching the show, and that's what they need to really work on. If somebody's connection is not there, I think they should be able to leave. Why stay and waste their time? Now we've moved on to the Precious segment, and we know they depicted Precious as this party girl, this fun girl, this overtly sexual girl. And I watched the interview with Tori on Little Black Book, and he was speaking about his interaction with Precious, sorry, and he mentioned that Precious was sexual. Yes, they did have intellectual conversation, but it was spearheaded by him. He's the one that wanted to have deep intellectual conversation. Precious was the one that wanted to have like surface level sexual conversation. So he essentially said that she's just upset because the way that she presented herself, it doesn't look good on TV. That's why she's so angry, particularly at this reunion, because she felt like things people were saying, especially what Dimitri said about her, was making her look like this Lucy girl and all she does is party. And according to Precious, there was more to her than that. As I said before, the reason why Precious blew up so much is because she feels like what Demetrius perceived about her affected how the other guys perceived her, and that's why she ended up going home. But based on what we saw on the TV, it wasn't only Demetrius that thought she was a little bit wild, I guess. It was also Paul that saw that, and who knows who else, because we don't get to see what everybody says. But I feel like she holds Demetrius the most accountable because he's the one that I guess producers chose to show. And what he said kind of did not make Precious look, I guess, the most refined. And that's why she's so upset and so pissed off, essentially. She also does not want to be talked down to. She also feels she doesn't want to be less than anyone. And so that whole depiction on TV made her look like she was kind of less than people, and she didn't like that feeling. And so she just lashed out on Demetrius for it. It was a lot, but she's coming from a very defensive standpoint because of what she's being seen on TV and how she's been portrayed. And that really affected her, I guess. So they talk about this whole love triangle thing. There wasn't really any love triangle, not as far as Joy was concerned. As far as Joy was concerned, it's always been her and Cliff. However, this Dakia thing, she thinks it's weird and she thinks it came out of the blue. And we all saw it came not out of the blue because they did have a flirty connection, so to speak, but it kind of became all about Clifton when Eric had to leave for inappropriately touching her. So when it became all about Clifton, that is when all of us felt like, okay, now the Kia, you're doing a little bit too much, because we all know and see that it's Joy and Clifton. And so they're doing this montage, and at the end of the montage, even never before seen clips, Joy lets out this very forceful laugh that she always does.
All right. You had a connection with Clifton.
Good at it.
So, Dakia, you had a connection with Clifton.
Yeah.
And essentially what that meant to me is that, and then she said good edit. So what that meant to me and everybody else is that what she's seeing with Dakia and Clifton is BS and it's ridiculous. And it was basically clips put together to make it seem like Dakia and Clifton had this big connection, but they didn't. So basically, Dakia knew very well that Joy and Clifton had a very strong connection, but for her to stay on the show, she had to kind of fake it a little bit and make it more than it was with Clifton. Now, Clifton is saying that he made it clear to everybody that his person was Joy when they kissed at that Truth or Dare date. And apparently, Dakia felt like, well, whatever, he did say that we have a chance, let me try to explore it, knowing that it would have been a dead end. And it was made to believe that there was still a chance, and then the viewers are thinking, oh, because Clifton didn't close it off completely, he said that there was a chance, that there is a chance. I feel like sometimes people forget that this is a show, and he had to say that. He had to say that he was in the process because the show is about dating multiple people. But we all knew, despite what he said, that his person was Joy. I need people to understand that. Look at his actions, not his words. His words are things that he's being fed by production some of the time. But his actions told us the truth of what it was. don't be a Dakia. So the Kia is a little bit contradictory because she's saying that she did see the strong connection between Cliff and Joy, but she still wanted Clifton to communicate to her that he had a strong connection with Joy. I think that what it is that it would have been good courtesy to at least tell the Kia so that she'd stop hanging on to this false hope. But at the end of the day, she's acting like she was completely naive and she didn't know what was going on, when she saw it. And I think that is what is frustrating Joy, because Joy feels like, don't act like you didn't know, you knew, and Clifton felt like, now I see Clifton a little bit cowardice in that instance, because you could have just told the lady and she would have moved on with her life. All you had to do is just tell her, not be a little childish and do little things to show her. Sometimes with women, you have to be fully transparent. They don't want to have to jump to any conclusions by seeing what you're doing. It's easier for you to just say what it is you're doing so that they know for sure, this is what he's doing, let me move on with my life. I feel like that's what Clifton should have done. But Joy feels like he didn't need to, because you already knew what it was. So the Kia kind of breaks down towards the end because Joy is coming in really hot. Joy is like, cut the BS. Like, you saw our connection from the jump. Like, what's the crying about? What's this all about? And she's like, I wasn't heartbroken, but I was a little hurt. And she's like, why are you being... Essentially, Joy is like, what's the purpose of you being hurt and everything when you knew what it was from the very beginning? And the Kia kind of gets a little frustrated and a little annoyed. She starts crying, and I do feel bad for the Kia, but I feel like the Kia put herself in a lose type of situation where she just would never have won or emerged victorious in that situation with Joy and Clifton. It just would not have happened. Joy and Clifton feel as if there was nothing for us to tell you, because it was very apparent to you. You knew that. But I feel like for the purpose of the show, it would have been more courteous for him to have just sat her down and told her very early on that I'm going to explore this with Joy, because that's who my strongest connection is. And that's simple. Let me know what you guys think about this situation in the comment section. We spoke on the Wiley segment. Everybody thought he was too young. They thought he was a little bit immature, a little bit childlike. They didn't want anything to do with him. He spoke specifically about Kina, and Kina saying he's a little too young. She kind of ghosted him a little bit. And it was so difficult for her to simply say, I typically go for older men, because I know she wants to make herself look like she was open to the process, but she came in with her checklist of what she wanted, and Wiley simply wasn't that. That's all she had to say, but she was stumbling and bumbling and rumbling all over the place because she, I guess, couldn't say what she wanted to say in a nice way. But essentially what it was Wiley wasn't your person. You wasn't attracted to him. He felt like he was too young, period. Wiley goes off and says, oh, Tina's been watching my social media. Everything I post, she's watching it. And Tina is like trying to say, well, I don't watch it just to watch it. I watch it just, in passing. That's essentially what she wanted to say. And then Wiley's like, since you weren't interested in me on the show, why are you watching my story? So there's this like meaningless back and forth. And she's like, oh, well, I'm going to stop watching your stuff after this show. So I guess she's gonna unfollow him or something, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, somebody watching your social media stories doesn't necessarily mean that they're interested in you or that they're stalking you or that it doesn't mean anything. Sometimes it just means you're going through people's stories and you just happen to go through his stories. Because if you know Instagram, once you start watching one story, it just continues on to other people's stories. So there's that. It doesn't have to have been this big problem. Anyways, him and Tiffany are now talking, dating. I don't know if that translated into anything long term. I don't think it did, because they did do interviews and I didn't hear that they were still conversing or talking with each other. So I guess that was a little bit short-lived, because I remember Tiffany going on the EXO channel and she said that she was still looking for her love. So I don't think it ended with Wiley. Now we're going through Clifton and Joy's journey again. It was magical to see though. So what did we learn? We learned that Joy is gonna take a break from performing and she's gonna spend some time with Clifton. She has to nurture that connection, of course. They're even talking about having a March baby. That is so soon. Like they like, to be honest with you, like they just left the show. To me, it's been less than 6 months at that reunion. It's been less than 6 months and they've already been talking about having a baby. Wow. Anyways, I do believe that the connection is real. I do believe that it's strong. And I do believe that it's one of a kind for this process, because Tommy is like, oh, his process works. Your process doesn't work. Let's get that clear. Your process does not work. It just so happens that they happen to meet each other there and their connection happened to be real. It had nothing to do with the process, because ask Joy, she wanted to leave that process a while ago. So it wasn't because of the process, but the process did put them in the same vicinity as each other. That's what it did do. So then Clifton gets down on his knees and everybody's thinking, oh, it's gonna be a proposal. But I knew it wasn't gonna be a proposal because he was taking way too long to say what he wanted to say. I was like, let me find out this is a joke. Come to find out, he opens the box and there's a key and he tells her, come home with me. So I guess they're gonna be living together now. This all seems like it's going so fast. But if it's at the pace that's most comfortable for them, I tell them just go ahead and do what's right for you. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section about the last episode of Ready to Love season 5. What did you think about the whole season? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was lackluster? Write it right down in the comment section and let me know, and see you guys next time for other reviews from me, Melissa, in the ranting shop. Bye.